One of the funny things about astrology is when we get into it, we hear about sun signs. And we're like, oh yeah, astrology is sun signs. Then you actually learn astrology and you're like, oh, sun, who cares about sun? We got all this other stuff, right? And the more I do astrology, the more things show up that make me realize how important the sun is. And that should be really obvious astronomically when we just look up and it's like, duh, the sun obviously is most important, right? But then we forget about that at some point in astrology. But it's critically important. And another way that shows it is with the Logitati Avashtas. Because the sun is the only planet that's going to have a Logitati Avashta effect on all the other planets. It's an enemy to two planets, the sun and Saturn, and it's a friend to everybody else. Okay, no other planet has a Logitati Avashta impact on everybody else. There's always something he's neutral towards and don't care about. So that alone puts more emphasis on what the sun is doing, which means you have to look and see what the sun is actively doing to all those 6 planets. That's often a game changer in the chart. Okay? And one of the nice things about the sun is it has the highest, what we call natural strength. And natural strength is simply how bright the planet is up there in the sky. Okay? And obviously the sun wins that by a lot. And so that natural strength of the sun helps the sun, always in some circumstances, have some power to help other planets. So when you're looking for a planet and thinking this planet needs some help, see if the sun is one of the planets helping it, or see if the sun is one of the planets hurting it, and realize the weight of that sun, for positive or negative, is really, really important. Okay? Now, for our purposes in the parent-adult-child scenario, we have this parental mind that's touching everybody. Okay? It's saying, do this to everyone. And on 4 people, he knows what to tell them what to do. And on 2 people, Venus and Saturn, he doesn't know what to tell them to do. Okay? Saturn is not like that. Saturn's a friend of Venus. Okay? He's an enemy to the sun. He's not that involved with things. Now, when he's with somebody, yes, he stars it. Because that's showing like I talked about in other Logitati Avashtas, there's a karmic residue that you have to work through that is causing the starvation. There's a karmic burden, I like to call it. That until that's resolved, that planet's starved. But by aspect and sign position, he really doesn't cause a lot of damage. Hardly any damage, actually. And he doesn't cause much good. He's the most hands-off what he's going to do in Logitati Avashtas until he conjuncts someone. Okay? Sun is the very opposite of Saturn, as always. It always has his finger on somebody for good or ill. So it really trickles down from the top of the kingdom, the king, down through the kingdom. So this parent mind of being ourselves, again, the sun is the inspired parent mind, ideally. The inspiration to be oneself and to follow the do's that actually are that. Okay? And it's fully invested in that act of let's rule the world with this inspired parent mind. And then it rules it well when it's influencing Moon, Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter. But if it's influencing Venus and Saturn, it's misguided. Okay? But as you can see, 4 out of 6 times it's doing good, and 2 out of 6 times it's misguided. So the sun is always going to, in almost every chart, is going to help things out more than it hurts them, luckily. Okay? So it's really one of the planets that's in our favor. So don't forget to always look at what avashtas the sun is causing. Alright, so the parent mind, as I mentioned, gets developed in the first 3 years of life, because out of the child mind's needs, getting met or not getting met, we start to develop this child mind, this parent mind of, okay, this is how I need to be to get my needs met. Okay? This is what I have to do to get my needs met. And that actually gets cultivated throughout our lives. Okay? If we're running the age of Mercury, and Mercury is divided by the sun, then in being our natural self, we're getting needs met. But if we're running, the age of Venus and it's influenced by the sun, being our natural self, not being our natural self, we're going to be our artificial self in some incidences, and as a result, not have our lives work out the way we want to. Because the sun will be saying to Venus, do this thing if it's starting with Venus. So you can look at this in the ages of these other planets. And of course, I've talked about the sun influencing Mars and Moon in previous videos, and I'll talk about the sun influencing Mercury and Jupiter in greater details and Saturn in future videos, okay? Here I'm just talking about like these concepts, okay? Or, not the planet, what it's really suffering, but what the sun's doing to those planets. Alright, so, if the sun is delighting any of the planets it delights, those 4 planets, Mars, Moon, Jupiter, and Mercury, that shows that the environment around them showed them that focusing on living our lives in Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, or Moon ways helped get a person what they needed and helped, but in being themselves. Because see, the sun influencing these planets all allows us to be ourselves. Alright, so Mars, Moon, for instance, it's the most simple, I think. Mars delighting the Moon, Sun delighting Moon. So the Moon's in Leo, or the Sun's aspecting or joining Moon. So the parent mind is saying to the Moon, okay, do this, do what you need. Okay, why does that work? Because our needs are a reflection of what we are. The Moon is a reflection of the Sun, right? So when the Sun is delighting the Moon, it's basically saying, the right thing to do, the parent mind of the Sun is saying, the right thing to do is this, and it's what you need. So, the person grows up in a world where they see people doing what they need, and being happy, and being fulfilled, and being loved and respected. So it says, okay, I can do this. I can do what I feel I need. I can act on my feelings. Great. That works, okay? And if we're not doing what we need, we can adopt this principle of, all right, parent mind, let's focus on doing what I need. Life will actually work better doing what I need than doing what I don't need done, okay? But if you have Sun influencing Moon, you're already living that way, luckily, when it's delighting the Moon, okay? Now, if the Sun is conjunct the Moon, it's delighting the Moon and also agitating Moon. So keep that in mind. So that means there is some strictness in the parent mind, as I talked about in the Moon agitated by Sun video. Go back and look at that, okay? Okay, next, let's go to Mercury, which is the child of the Moon. So, Moon knows it has a need. Now it's Mercury's job to go fulfill that need. Okay? Not to fulfill it, to research that need. And say, alright, where can I get this need met? And so, the Sun delighting Mercury makes a person say the right thing to do is to experiment, learn, study, analyze, observe. It's the right thing to do is these Mercury things. I need to do these Mercury things. Now, if Saturn is conjunct Mercury, it's saying don't do these things. Well, obviously, you need to do these things. We've talked about the importance of Mercury. It's the developing adult mind. So the Sun delighting Mercury is saying what you should do is you should develop your adult mind. Yes, we have to. Okay? And when that means doing all these Mercury things that I've talked about, and I'll talk about more of those when I get into the Mercury, Avastas of Mercury videos, okay? So yes, we should do these Mercury things. Try things, not get attached to things, test things, see what works, see what shoes fit, not commit until we know I've tested it and I understand these are the shoes I want to bring home, okay? That's healthy. Then we go on to the next planet, the Sun delights after that is Mars. Okay? And Sun is saying, okay, one of the things you should do is fight for what you need. And defend your needs. Okay? Yes, we should do that. That's important in this dog-eat-dog world, right? Okay, unfortunately, we have to. unfortunately there are people who have very bad avastas, and those people are robbers, bandits, etc. And yes, we're not walking down the street and getting attacked by bandits anymore. I wish we were. That would be easy. Draw sword, kill bandit, life story is over. Instead, we have thousands of videos online about narcissistic behavior and people, because of their own weaknesses, feeding off other people. So that's what I mean by bandits these days. We're surrounded by bandits, actually, okay, of a much more tricky side. And you don't just get to draw your sword, but kill a narcissistic bandit, through the heart, put your sword back, and be the hero, get the kiss on the cheek by the fair maiden, and save the stagecoach. You don't do that anymore. You get thrown in jail. But I'm sure a lot of people would wish they could do that, okay? So, unfortunately, we're beset by bandits. And it's Mars that defends us from bandits. The Sun is like, you need to defend your needs, you can defend what you need to survive, and the Sun's saying, yes, you should do this, okay? Sadly, in this world, it's required, okay? Okay, and then we've talked about the Sun, and so growing up, again, I want to go back to a person growing up, their development. A person has Mars delighting the Sun, so Mars in Leo, or Mars aspecting the Sun. In their world that they grew up, they observe people being strong in their needs, and seeing people have conversations like, I know you want me to do that, but I'm sorry, I really have to do this. And other people saying, okay, that's all right, thanks for letting me know. They didn't grow up in a family or world where there was bandits and robbers, aka people manipulating each other, using each other, taking from each other, codependent patterns. All that stuff does not contribute to nice Sun delighting Mars. Okay? Because in all those situations, there's people who are not able to defend themselves, essentially. And so they're going to learn this behavior that we don't defend ourselves from sociopaths. Okay? That's an indication of a bad Mars, actually. The Sun delighting Mars says, no, we draw the line on sociopaths, the modern bandits, okay? In this legal world, where you can't just kill them. Okay. All right, so, and also I want to step back to Mercury. So with respect to Mercury, we've got, again, Sun is saying, do this, explore, try things, check things out. So a person has that. They grow up in a family where, yes, that happens, where people are saying, let me check this out. I'm going to go see this. I'm going to go look at this. They talk things over. It's not where things are just getting forced. Okay? Now, if your Mercury is agitated, especially if it starts getting combust and agitated, then yes, there would have been an element in your life that, yes, there was some inquiry that was witnessed as, yes, we're supposed to do this thing called inquiry and observation and test things and figure things out. But there would also have been an element of control, where one person in the family, more often the father, because we live in a more patriarchal world, but could be a mother, who was saying, I already did the research. If you don't do your research, follow mine. But that's not fair, because Mercury, our Sun is ourself, and it needs to find out what's right for us. You like those shoes, but maybe I don't feel good in them, okay? So when the Mercury is agitated, especially when it's combust, there will be an element of that there. So you need to, again, measure the strength, how much is the light, how much is the agitation going on with that. So again, when the Sun is influencing everyone, like we talked about in the Sun, Star being Saturn and Venus videos, and now it's influencing these nice planets, it's learned behaviors where a person saw these things working this way and adopted this as the truth that this is how life works, okay? Alright, then we got Mars, Mercury, okay, Jupiter's the final one. So now we have Sun delighting Jupiter. Okay, so that's basically the same thing. The parent mind Sun saying, I should do the thing that makes me happy, that makes me good, that I'm good at, that gives me fulfillment. That's the thing I should do. So a Sun delighting Jupiter person had an exposure of people doing things that actually made them happy. Okay? Now, if the Sun's, and it's doing good things, being caring, being all the Jupiter things, they're seeing these, finding purpose. They're seeing people who are living their life with purpose. Okay? Which is a huge Jupiter thing. And again, we'll have a bigger video on Sun delighting Jupiter, on the Jupiter end later. If Sun's agitating Jupiter by being conjunct Jupiter, now you have a person who, yes, there was this element of, yes, let's live according to purpose. But because of the agitation, there's also an element of somebody, some king, who's not your own self, deciding what the purpose is more than you. And so there you're agitated, you're frustrated. An agitated planet, conjunct the Sun, there's an anger there of like, I didn't get to do it my way. There's always an element of that with an agitated planet. You're frustrated. There's a force on you that's saying you have to do it this way, and you're like, but I just want to do it my way. And the force says you don't get to. So you're frustrated always with an agitated planet. And with the Jupiters, because someone is, there's someone, some usurper king in the family who has decided that they're going to decide the purpose of your kingdom to some degree, depending on the severity of the Jupiter. Okay. Now, if you see the Sun shaming any of these planets, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Mars, or Moon that I just talked about, now we have these functions completely reduced, shamed, and demeaned, where the person is simply not allowed to explore these things. There is no other option for you. You don't get to look into these things. You don't get to think about your purpose. I've already decided it. So some king, usually a sociopathic king, wearing the crown of sociopathy on their heads, has decided to run those functions for you. I'll tell you what I need, Moon shamed by Sun. I'll tell you what to fight for and work hard for, Sun shaming Mars. I'll tell you what to try and do instead of exploring with Mercury. So you get a Sun shaming Mercury, the person doesn't get to explore things. And you'll see this in religious cults, where people, they don't get to explore truth. They're just growing up. This is the truth. Okay? Nobody should follow religion that they're growing in. Nobody should do that. The stupidest things humans do. Everyone should explore the spiritual path that's best for them. That starts with Mercury. And we know from Jaimian astrology that everyone has different planets that are governing their spiritual life. And we need to follow a path that allows for that planet. It's a personal thing, the spiritual life. It has nothing to do with family or the tribe. The minute religion becomes, our spiritual life is defined by the tribe, it's probably not spiritual anymore. By the tribe, I mean our family. It's probably not spiritual anymore. So you'll see the Sun shaming Mercury, and people who grow up, often in people who grow up in cults, where they're not allowed to explore their spiritual options, or any options, Okay. And with Jupiter, the person, someone else, some, sociopathic king has decided already, yes, we believe in purpose, but this king is defining your purpose. It's not your purpose, it's the king's purpose. Your purpose is to serve the king, It's no one's purpose to serve the king, other than serving the king as themselves. The king is supposed to ask for volunteers. Who wants to serve me doing this? And the people who love doing that, can't wake up in the morning and do that, raise their hands, right? The king's not supposed to walk around and say, you're going to do this. You're like, but how am I going to do that? All I know how to do is cheat at cards, You can't do it. I use that cheat as cards because, of course, that's a ridiculous thing. But it's not ridiculous to just walk up to someone and say, this is what you need to do for me. It's like, really? You don't even know what my purpose is, what I wake up to get out of bed for. So how can you just come and say, this is what you need to do for me? They can't. But people who have a shamed Jupiter would have experienced that type of, would have had a person like that in their lives probably. That's just a mean their unique goodness. Because your Jupiter is your goodness, your purpose. It's not your tribal purpose, not your family's purpose. It's only your purpose. Okay? And the sun's job is to help us live as ourselves. Okay? Not live in anyone else's purpose. But when it starts shaming planets, the exact thing that's happening is the parent mind. There's been a parent mind development of not doing that simply through harsh training. No other options. No other options. So the people who grow up in cults with sun shaming Mercury parent minds, they actually believe this. They haven't explored to arrive at their own truth. They just have a parent mind that says this is the truth. No reason to look elsewhere. Okay? So that's never healthy. Alright, so we're going to talk much more about these avashtas in detail. Here I'm trying to summarize how the planets, the sun is, hurting Venus, Saturn, or helping the rest of the 4 planets, is based on the person's experiences in life, how they saw the sun, how they saw the world working. If we have anyone who has children, the most important example you can have, the best thing you can do is be a good example. Doesn't matter what you say as a parent. Doesn't matter. Okay? It's the examples that matter. And then if you have children, or you're looking at the charts of children, everything you see in that child's chart, realize this is learned behavior. This is their experience of the world their parents and anyone else involved in their lives created to say, this is the world you live in. You can actually look at the chart from the point of view of this parent-adult-child concept that your chart is the way you believe the world works. All your avashtas, this is how you believe the world works because of your experiences, your observations of growing up. So when you're looking at your child's plans, you're like, why do both of my kids have this kind of skewed Mars? Well, because you gave that as an example somehow. So how do you help your child? Do you go over there and start lecturing them when they're 5 years old? No. You figure out how you give them that example, and you give them a good example. That's all you have to do. So, it's never too late to give our children a good example, and not if we've given them a bad example, where we've given them a bad example, right? Because they didn't wake up with all planets. They weren't born with all planets exalted, right? Therefore, if you have kids, you were also a bad example. Guilty, okay. So, keep that in mind. So, heal your children by becoming a good example. And the wonderful thing about that is your life's going to work better too. A good example doesn't mean, look at me, and you fall in the mud. Good example says, look at me, do the right thing, look at me, do the right thing. And the kids go, wow, mom's happy, dad's happy all of a sudden. I get it. A good example means living your life in the way that allows happiness. Where we've been a bad example is exactly where we have been miserable and not living our lives right. So it's 2 birds with 1 stone. Daddy stone and baby stone. Fixed, okay? Birds. Daddy bird and baby bird, or mommy bird and baby bird. With 1 solution, 2 people get helped. Or we have 10 kids, 11 people, even better, okay? So that's how you want to work with child-parent charts. What should I do for my child? Well, how old are they? 7? Okay, well, let's see. Let's look at, look at that. Oh yeah, all your kids have this funky sort of thing that's somewhat similar, not exactly the same. But there's a similarity of, same thing. Look at the parent's chart, figure out what avashta is giving that thing, and say, what you should do for your kids is fix this avashta. That's it. No therapy required for your kids. You get the therapy. Okay? Because kids are very malleable through the age of Mercury, which is till 12. There's so much room for development at that point. After the age of Venus, it's harder. Because now we got those hormones kicking in. And what those hormones do to the kid is say, I don't need you, mom and dad. I need that girl or that guy. That's who they need. So now you're not the big example to them now. The big example of them now is their peers, the people they got the hots for. Those are the people they're going to start emulating, right? And your example can still help, but up up until the age of 12, when that Mercury age is running, there's still more room to be a good example and have an impact on children than there is after that. Okay? Can happen anytime, of course, but you have till 12. So you don't have to have done everything right in the first 3 years. You can really help your children in the next 9 years after that. Okay? All right, thank you.